Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin. Welcome to Wednesday. Happy hump day out there. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. Wealth insurance. It's what we do. It's what it is. And I know, when you sit there, you look at a small segment, like today, as an example. Oh, well, Wall Street's X, and gold is Y, and you start to say, well, maybe I don't have to have wealth insurance right now. You couldn't be more wrong. This is the height. This is really the last, and everyone feels it. This is the end of the bubble. Right, all the lies, all the manipulation, and all that stuff is coming to an end. And today's going to be another great example of that. Just a crazy, crazy market. But that's what you get. Right? That's what you get when, Wall Street's, what a great tool. Really is. Well, and maybe I should say really was. I mean, what is the stock market supposed to do? We know it's a debt market, right? It's a way for companies to get money, right? When you invest in Wall Street, you're letting companies borrow your money. I mean, that's really the premise of it. And if you lend it to the right company, you can get rewarded. Obviously, and if you lent it to the wrong company, well, you get punished. But what people don't really realize is Wall Street, for a long time, used to be where there was price discovery. And think about it this way. In a market where there was no intervention, no higher entity, if you will, picking winners or losers, and everything just, traded on its own merits. It sounds like a pretty good system. But what's happened, and really go back to the early 70s, right, when we went off the gold standard and all that, every decade, the central bank has issued more manipulation. And, of course, we end up having these boom and bust and boom and bust and boom and bust cycles. And the reason that we have them is because of the manipulation. Why did we get a boom? Well, the answer is simple. Because they manipulate to get money to flow in. One of their favorite ways to do that is what? Interest rates. Well, let's just not pay any interest. Right? All of a sudden, think about this now. Now, I know some of us, here's the sad part. Some of us aren't old enough to actually remember what I'm going to say. Which is, used to be, if you were in your 50s, that you would pretty much, your portfolio would mostly be in bonds, in CDs. Right? You didn't have to guess who the winners were versus the losers. Right? You didn't have to risk it. And believe me, most of you, and I know they say, oh, Dow's at an all-time high or close to it or whatever. Believe me when I tell you, and those of you that have 401ks and IRAs, you know what I'm talking about. We never do anywhere close as good as to what the, quote, market does. See, because one of the things the market does is the winners, Apple, Google, Netflix, right? Amazon, Microsoft. There's only about 5-6 companies you name. they get more weighting in the index. And the companies that aren't so good, they get less. So it's designed to reflect really what? How good are the good companies doing? That's really what it's designed for. But when you buy things and how they have it set up, most of us, and I know some of you, you got your E-Trade accounts, your Schwab account, whatever, your Robinhood accounts. But we don't buy stock that way. If you've got an IRA, and let's just, for argument's sake, say it's $100,000, or a 401k, you don't even get to pick. It's not like you get to call them up, and there are some exceptions, but not very many. But there are some, but you don't get to call up the head of your 401k and say, listen, I want all my money in Apple and Amazon and Microsoft. You can't do that. A lot of times they buy index funds, or ETFs, and that's a big group. Now, do you have some exposure to the good ones? Yes, but you also have exposures to the bad ones, and your returns are never as good. And it's risky. That's why you'd buy bonds or CDs, and you'd get 7, 8, 9% with really no risk. But see, they needed to manipulate. Now all we have is risk. That's why you need wealth insurance. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be right back. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Price discovery. Destroyed. By who? Well, by the bankers who were in charge of this system. This system that, in case you haven't noticed, really doesn't work very well. Now, I know, it's great. No, it's not. Are there some more billionaires? Yeah, can Jeff Bezos go out into space and all? Yeah, I guess. But for every Jeff Bezos, what is there, like 1 million people that go the other way? And this is what happens in currencies that are collapsing upon themselves. And how do they collapse? They collapse on debt. So what market has to be manipulated the most? Well, the debt market. And remember how they started, and people they want to rewrite history. They want to pretend that all the things that happened 20 and 30 and 40 years ago don't matter, but they do. You know, the Fed used to manipulate the market by lowering interest rates to 4 or 5%. The Fed funds rate to 4 or 5. 5, maybe 4. That was a lot. I mean, right now, how many people would be content to buy a bond, to buy a CD, or some similar type instrument that was going to pay them 7, 8, 9% a year with no risk, well, or very little risk? And the answer is a lot. But you see, that wasn't going to be good for the system. They need us to be in there, right? Because why is it, do you think, the central bank has rates at 0? They don't want you to have money in the bank. No, they don't say it like that. But isn't that the reality? I don't get paid any interest to lend my money to the bank. Right? And that's what it is when our money goes into our checking account. You know, in most places, right? You know, especially all the big places, you got to have direct deposit. You don't have a bank account. A lot of places you can't work, can't get a job. Well, we don't do paper checks. Got to have a bank account. When it goes in, you're lending that money to the financial institution that you bank at. They loan it out. They used to pay you interest for that. And that kind of made sense, didn't it? Especially when inflation is as high as it is today. Here's the real slap in the face if you really don't understand what's happening. Okay? And again, you can take a little segment if you want to. Right? Like today as an example. Right? The Dow's down 300 points. So what? Still near an all-time high. Gold's flat. Doesn't mean very much. There's no context. But when you draw out the big picture, it's very clear to see where this whole thing is going. It's easy. I'll just tell you, you don't have any gold or silver in your portfolio, you're an idiot. Period. Period. You're just asking for them to take your money. And of course, it's like Vegas. What's the appeal of Vegas? Sin City, right? We're gonna go be bad. I'm gonna take whatever it is, 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. You know, Rich got 100,000, and I'm gonna gamble. Now, usually, not always, some people have issues. Usually that's money that you could afford to lose, right? And what's the appeal? The appeal is I could win. Normally doesn't happen. And I guess, what do we all know? Here's the funny part. What do we all know about Vegas? What do we all know about the Indian casinos? It's set up for us to lose. We know that. The odds are against us. But we go anyway. It's like playing the lottery, right? The odds are overwhelmingly against winning. But we do it anyway, right? Because, man, one thing about the American people, we want the big lick. That's why we love Bitcoin. But, well, I could double my money. I can triple. I can be rich. But more than likely, you're going to get your ass whooped. It's like me. I can't be a stock picker. I don't know. You know. I just tell everybody, if you're buying stock, buy Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, right? You know, unfortunately for us, the big moves in those companies happened a long time ago. But I think if you buy those ones, you know, you can make 10%, you know, 8%, 7%, right? You know, I think, I don't know, maybe not. But Wall Street's the same way. It's actually a lot like Vegas. It's not meant for us to win. Who wins? Who's it set up for to win? Think about it. Well, set up for the banks to win. Set up for the hedge funds to win, right? It's set up for the guys that have hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars. That's who it's set up for. Right? By the time you hear something on the idiot box, it's too late to buy these stocks. I love, oh, well, if you would have bought Apple when it first came out, right? Apple almost went out of business in like 1997. Hey, but look at it today. The problem is there was 10,000 other Apples. And they all went out of business. Right? So that's the problem. But the central bank doesn't allow for accurate price discovery. Listen, inflation that they admit to is over 5%, which means their Fed's funds rate, which is 0 to 0.25, should be at least at or near the rate of inflation. And really, in my opinion, should be more than the rate of inflation. And then, of course, could you imagine? Fed's funds rate of 5%. A 10-year note would, at that level, would probably yield somewhere around 7.5%, 8%. Now, what would happen? What would be wrong with that? Well, I think all of us know. Where would Wall Street be? Half? That may be too generous. Most of these Wall Street companies would go under. Because you got to remember, they've all borrowed this money. And at what rate did they borrow it at? And you got to understand, Wall Street doesn't borrow money the way we borrow money. Right? You get a mortgage, that's a 30-year fixed at this rate. Fixed being the key word. Wall Street never borrows like that. Never. They borrow mostly interest only. Mostly. If you're a really bad retailer, right, you got to pay some interest. But with no intentions of ever paying off, the debt is very short term. 3, 5, 7 years. Very, very, and the whole goal is, well, hopefully we're doing better. We can just keep refi. Kind of like how we do it on our homes now, right? We've actually turned our homes into this refi center. Here's the, refis are great, especially if you don't pull money out. Then I love them. But the problem is we can't help it. We can't help hey, we'll get you at the lower rate and we'll give you 50 grand, 100 grand, and your payment will be the same. Oh, okay, great. You lose all your equity in your house at all times. But again, they want you to do that. They have rates so low. I mean, like mortgage rate 3%. How can banks make any money if inflation's 5% and they only get 3% on a home, right? I mean, the math is easy to see. But that's why we have all these busts. They create a boom because the economy's slowing down. We got to pump it up. They broke it because it was ridiculous. The last time, and bear with me on this, the last time the market had any close resemblance to making any sense was right before the tech bubble, when the central bank believed their own BS, and we did too. The government spending wasn't horrible, right? Remember a couple of years in Clinton, we really didn't run a budget surplus. Believe me when I tell you that, we didn't. But it was reasonable. The deficit was reasonable. Alan Greenspan uttered the words, we're going to have the national debt paid off by 2010. This was in the mid-90s. Of course, then there were some hiccups, and they created the tech bubble. Boom, bust, boom, bust. Now think about where we're at today. So 11 years past 2010. The debt sits at 28.6 trillion, and we don't, it's rising, but we're at the debt ceiling right now. By January, it's going to be 30 trillion. So we didn't pay it off. You got to remember, he made these comments. The debt was barely 5 trillion when he made the comment. So this is kind of what I'm getting at. What's happened since is really what we're here looking at. Forget about one-day snapshot. Look at the context of where we sit and where we're headed. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. So think about this. Right before the tech bubble blew up. Because remember now, we were basking in the glow of Alan Greenspan's central bank, where we had really an anomaly, for lack of a better term, where for a while there, hey, we thought, maybe, you know what, maybe they got the secret sauce. Listen, I believed it. Don't feel bad if you're like, oh man, I missed it. And people say it all the time, I wish I had done this and I wish I had bought gold in. You can't feel bad. Dude, I believed it. I remember telling my older brother, well, the NASDAQ's where it's at. It's going to be higher than the Dow. Of course, I did how little I understood, right? They just take the really good NASDAQ companies, put them in the Dow, so there's no way that could actually ever happen. But anyhow, that's irrelevant. I believed it. And then, of course, we had the tech bubble. And right before it blew up, gold's $250. England sold pretty much all of its gold. Boy, they regret that now, don't they? And what happened? Well, we found out that the central bank, through manipulation, wasn't allowing Wall Street to have accurate price discovery. Which created what? Which created the tech bubble. Anything.com was just a huge hit. Right? And I look at it like Robinhood today. The stock, the IPO happened. It's going, well, it didn't happen today, but the stock's going hog wild. Bitcoin, the meme stocks, AMC and GameStop. I mean, those are horrible companies, by the way. Just saying. But look at the amount of idiocracy that's happening. Because the central bank isn't allowing for real price discovery. That's why we have it. That's why we have bubbles. And it blew up. And I remember Alan Greenspan brought interest rates down to 1%. The Fed funds rate, 1%. Oh, my, people were going crazy. And he left it there for not even a year, like 9 months, something like that. And all of a sudden, we had the housing boom, right? Because never before had we ever seen rates that low. And granted, it wasn't that long, but it did. It made what? buying a home, long-term debt at a much lower rate, made it very attractive. Wanted to pump the economy back up. Which really, when you think about it, is the wrong answer. Stop manipulating the market and just let the economy be the economy. You won't have big blow-ups. Used to be, if you had an issue in housing, it was relegated to a certain part of the country. Why? Because there wasn't that much manipulation. And usually there was a reason why. Well, that was where, as an example, that was where all the textile plants were. And all those factories closed down. And so the housing in that part of the country is depressed. Had nothing to do with the housing in the rest of the country. But now they've got to manipulate everything. Phoenix is, what a great place Phoenix is. I truly do love it here. But man, this is the epicenter. Every neighborhood, you're loaded with people that own real estate from somewhere else. It doesn't even have to be in the country, right? I mean, you got to have a bigger bubble. And this is the problem with bubbles. You got to have it bigger, right? So they took housing, and now housing is really global now. But every time the bubble bursts, they've got to reflate it. Well, here's the problem. Now, to try to reflate, interest rates have been zero for the better part of the last, 12, 13 years. Now, nobody could imagine putting interest rates at 5 or 6 and having, can you imagine a 10-year note at 7 or 8, 9, 10%? It can't happen. It's not possible. Because the debt, what do we talk? I don't even know what the national debt would go. What would it go up? $8, $10 trillion a year? It'd be crazy. So instead now, everybody's at risk now. Right? And I talk about it all the time. My friends talk to me about it all the time. Everybody's trying to when's this housing thing going to crash down? When's Wall Street going to crash down? When's all this stuff going to crash down? And we all know it's coming. And the problem is we're more exposed than ever before. Because we don't have the safety to go to. Could you imagine? I got to buy a U.S. Treasury. I think a 2-year note's paying 0.15. Can you imagine? 10-year note's paying, 1.2. Actually, today it got down to 1.3 for a minute. 1.13, I'm sorry. And so the next one's going to be the worst one. And like I said, you can take little pictures. Oh, look at this is, and I always like to call this, we're in the eye of the hurricane. And the problem is the hurricane just keeps coming. Never stops. Right? The tech bubble, that was bad, but not too bad. Housing bubble, that was worse. Financial crisis really sucked. This one, they just get bigger. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. So we buy gold and silver as a hedge because we want to, hopefully, my hope is, hey, your house is doing well. My hope is your investments have done well. You need to take some of that and get that wealth insurance. Because you know, listen, I don't need to tell you it's the bubble. Of course, we already know. We all know. I mean, we've been trained now, right? Take today. Right, so when is it going to end? Everybody's confused right now. Take today. Today we had ADP jobs. I told you yesterday. This was not going to be a good number. They were expecting 653,000 new jobs created in July. We got half that number, 330,000. And I don't care, COVID, non-COVID, summertime's always big jobs numbers because they hire for, the hotel, the vacation season. 330, big disappointment. But again, that's just a quick snapshot. Can't take anything in. All I know is, hey, that's the lowest amount of job creation going back to February. So not a great sign. And get used to that, by the way. Then you had Janet Yellen, who, in my mind, is the most dangerous person on the planet. Under her tutelage, because she became the second most powerful person, and after Alan Greenspan retired, Ben Bernanke came in, Janet Yellen became the second most powerful person. Then, of course, she became the head of the central bank, and now she's the head of the Treasury. And if you look at that run, under her watch, and I don't know the exact, I'd have to look it up. I didn't know I was going to go here, but I'd have to look it up. But Alan Greenspan left with a deficit, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 7 trillion tops. Fed's balance sheet, $700 billion. Okay. So, let's just say total debt maybe $7 trillion. In the last 15 years or so, with Janet Yellen being a major power player, when you combine the Fed's balance sheet, you combine the national debt, we're within earshot of 40 trillion. That's easy math for you to do. And rising quickly. Gold was $250, it's $1,800. That's easy math to do. And here's the thing, we all know gold's undervalued. Everybody, silver, undervalued. Everybody agrees. Even the guys on the idiot box agree. And today, Janet Yellen comes out. So the jobs report, terrible. Not good. Janet Yellen comes out and says, man, we really need to deliver. She was in Atlanta, by the way. The Democrats and Joe Biden's infrastructure plan, she's not talking about the $1 trillion. No, the $3.5 trillion plan. And it was her first domestic trip and the reflection of her increasingly visible role as one of the administration's champions for expansive investment in so-called human capital. We've grown used to America as the world's preeminent economic power, she said. We aren't destined to stay that way. But with these investments, I believe we will. This is what you're up against. Debt, like we have never seen. Power of central banks like we have never seen. Power from government like we have never seen. Calling this, now think about this. We've gone from 7 trillion to 40 trillion. And now her answer is, oh, well, if we just go bigger. If we just go bigger, we have a chance to repair the broken foundation of our economy. Well, who broke it? Aren't you the one that broke it? Why in God's name would we be listening to this woman? We can repair the broken foundation of our economy. Oh, by the way, I'm the one who broke it. And on top of that, build something fairer and stronger than what came before. Well, let's see. People that think their kids are going to live better than them, down to 30%. 70% of people out there like, man, this thing is broken. But we want to make it fairer. What does fairer mean? In her eyes, more government. Let us pick winners and losers. We'll decide who gets the money. Fleece the prosper to give to the poor. It's a horrible economic model, and we're all going to pay for it. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Today's special U.S. $10 Liberties. Haven't run those in a while. $10 Liberties are going to be at $1,035. So that's $20 off. $10 Liberties, $1,035. Half ounce of gold pre-1933, and these are, of course, 1866 to 1907 at $1,035 at 800-951-0592. Put them away. Listen, you know I'm right. It's absolute ridiculousness out of Janelle. This is where we're headed. This is the only tool they've ever had. And now, here's the sad part. Everybody's at risk now. I mean, think about it. Nobody has money in the bank anymore, and if you do, you're kind of foolish. But if you don't, what else do you do? And now think about it. So gold was up $20 after she started talking. Gold loved that. Of course it loved it. It's stupid. Now gold's flat. It's up like $1. Because they immediately sent out the vice chair. I want you to understand what he said. So we all know inflation's running wild. Matter of fact, we just got another economic report today tracking prices on the ISM, the service sector prices. They've been tracking this way since 1997. Only 3 times in that history has the inflation part, the prices they have to pay, been over what they call 80. 50 is flat, so think about 80. That's a lot. Once was last month. Another one was one time in 2005. But we had it last month over 80, this month over 80. Matter of fact, almost 83. I mean, it's incredible how fast prices are rising. And the vice chair comes out, Richard Claret is his name, for those of you, it doesn't matter, he's not a power player. Even though he's technically the number 2, he's very weak. Oh, well, I could see, the economy. By the end of next year, things could be better, and I could see us raising rates in 2023. That's like saying, it's like a fat person saying, you know what, I'm going to go on a diet in 2 years. I gotta, and here's what's so funny to me. Oh my gosh, look how hawkish he is. What are you talking about? You know why they're saying that? They want to pretend, and nobody in their right mind would think that was hawkish. Inflation that you admit to is at 5+%. Raise the damn rates before it gets worse. Nope. They know. You know. We all know. The second rates rise, it's done. Problem is, if you don't raise them, it's done. And now, remember what Stan Druckenmiller said. Just remember his words. If I wanted to destroy the economy right now, I'd keep spending money. They've got an agenda. Janet Yellen's their leader. You want to meet fairer. You know what fairer means. Fairer means if you've had any success, let's take it from you and give it to people that don't. That's not prosperity. 800-951-0592.